Okay, so I've put some predictions together for 2025 and what it is likely to mean for property investment, property development, and the property market in general. So, prediction number one, I think rents are going to rise around 5%. I'll tell you why. Stamp duty has gone up to around 8,000 or 9,000 now on a 160,000, 170,000 buy to let. EPC of C or above is now, it's pretty sure you're going to need to have that by 2030, which is going to put quite a few people off buying. And the repeal of Section 21, which means it's going to be harder to evict tenants, I think will be introduced in 2025. So what that means is less buy-to-let landlords purchasing and therefore increased rents. So I think they'll carry on going up and they'll just get more and more out of kilter with affordability, whilst ever the government has this high regulation, high tax mentality to get rid of buy-to-let landlords. Number two, I think as there's going to be even less growth in the economy, according to the Office for Budget Responsibility, since the budget has become clear, there's more tax, there's more national insurance, lots of inheritance tax, more capital gains tax from people selling their businesses, farmers, all of those different areas means that there's likely to be less growth. Therefore, I think inflation will continue to moderate, and therefore interest rates are likely to continue to drop. I think next year, by the end of next year, Bank of England base rate will be 3.75%. We're at 4.75 at the moment, so I think it's going to drop by 1 percentage point. So that's my second prediction. Prediction number three. As the government has a stated aim to reduce the number of small landlords and increase build to rent, i.e. more institutional investment into blocks of flats and lots of houses on estates, I think that will continue to grow. We have entered this space. We've been building PRS blocks or build to rent blocks for a few years now. The stock, the amount of these units that there are in the country at the moment, there's about 120,000 of these houses and flats. It's up 23%, so it's up a quarter since the third quarter of 2023, so that's over the last year. And there's about another 150,000 in planning and in construction. So, in total, planning, construction and what there is, there's something like a 5% growth this year. So I think next year you'll see at least the same again. So I'm targeting between 5 and 10% growth in build to rent. So that was prediction number three. Just a bit of context there. The total size of the private rented sector, the number of properties that are rented privately in this country is around 4.5 million now. We have a population of about 70 million. 4.5 million houses and flats are being rented. And the build to rent sector, these big blocks that the institutions generally own, is still only 120,000. So there's huge growth there that's going to continue. And I think the smaller landlords are going to reduce, and the landlords that own these bigger blocks and housing estates are going to increase. I think that's going to be a big growth area, and it's an area that we're involved with, and I think it's a good investment zone. I think the government want to encourage it. Generally, the stamp duty you pay would be a commercial rate because you're buying land or a building to convert. And then when you're involved, you are not subject to Section 24. You can offset all the mortgage interest against the rent because you're buying within a limited company. Okay, so prediction number four. I believe that next year, HMO rents will outperform single let rents or rents that you get on a house or a flat where it's let to a family. Why do I think room rents are going to increase so much, or why do I think the relationship will change so much? Let me just give you some data. 2016, if we rented out a one-bed flat in the centre of Peterborough, we would get about $650 a month. Back then, gas and electricity and council tax were much, much lower, especially electricity. So the bills were about $250 a month. So in total, the $650 and the $250 meant the tenant will be paying about $900 a month, versus a very high-end HMO room in the same location, that would have been let at about $550, that's all bills included. So the difference between the one-bed flat, including all the bills, and the HMO room, including all the bills, meant that the flat was about 60% more than the room. Fast forward to 2024, we've had the government introduce Section 24, we've had interest rates go up quite a bit, we've had lots of new legislation and taxation and all the stamp duty, that's increased. And we're in a situation where that one-bed flat that was let in 2016 for $650, that is now let for $925. And the bills on that have gone up from $250 to about $400 a month. That's mainly gas, electric, and council tax increases. So the one-bed flat now costs $1325 a month to let and to run, whereas in 2016 it was $900. The HMO room, however, is probably now worth maybe $675 a month versus $550 in 2016. So you can see the HMO room has gone up probably £100, £125, whereas the one-bed flat has increased about £425 a month. So the flat is now 100% more to rent than the room, and in 2016, the flat was only 60% more to rent than the room. So the differential between single let, family lets, and rooms, HMO rooms, has really grown. And I think that's the case right across the country. I think they will start to come back together. I don't think family rents or single let rents will drop. Rents don't usually drop, they maybe drop a little bit. I think what will happen is the room rents will start to outperform and they will come up. The reason why they've got so far apart, I suspect, is because there's been a lot more supply of rooms coming on. People have seen that as maybe a way to counter some of these government changes, taxation, legislation, everything like that. And people see it as maybe more attractive. So lots more people have been coming in. But I think that reaches an equilibrium, and at some point the supply will be met, and therefore the room rents will really catch up. Prediction number 5. Donald Trump has just won the election in the US. I suspect that's a result of lots of the population feeling like they will be richer or economically better off with him in charge. I think he's going to reduce taxes a lot. He's probably going to put tariffs and barriers, i.e. Goods that go into the US, probably have about 10%, depending on where they're coming from. I think stuff from China, especially electric cars, is going to be a hell of a lot more. But we may end up with a good trade deal with the US. So we may be insulated from this more than the European Union, and more than certainly Asia and other parts of the world. So what is the effect of that going to be on the UK property market? Well, I don't know, maybe it helps our growth a little bit, because what happens in America often sort of comes over here. But I think the really big thing is what Elon Musk has said. Elon Musk took over Twitter. He's reduced their workforce by 80%. Apparently it's still operating as it always did do. And he's saying he's going to do something similar for the US government. Our government has become really bloated. They're taking on loads of extra civil servants through COVID. Looks like Labour want to grow it even more. Doesn't look like they're that interested in productivity gains or efficiency. It just seems to be all about throwing more and more money into this black hole. If Elon Musk gets into the US government, there's talk of him saving $2 trillion a year in their budget. Now, maybe he won't get there, but if he does do this and he gets involved and he brings technology in and reduces all of these layers of management and costs in the US government, and it works, this is going to be the model for the rest of the world. And that could quite easily come over here. Now, all of this obviously takes time. It's not the sort of thing that Labour are going to want with their union paymasters, but they probably won't be there forever. Only 20% of people actually voted Labour in the last election. Incidentally, only about 20% of people voted for Trump, maybe 73, 74 million people out of a population of well over 300 million in the US. So this doesn't necessarily, it doesn't represent the majority of people, neither of those results do. But clearly we have a system, and both of those groups have won. So what does this mean for the United Kingdom? If all that starts in the medium term, that could create much better growth. Does that mean we're going to have much change in 2025 from Trump's election? No, I don't think so. So prediction number 5 is the US election will probably not really do very much to our property market in 25. Prediction number 6, you can convert lots more retail buildings now, and the upper cap on offices or all permitted development conversions has been removed by central government. So I think there will be more conversions of retail and office buildings in 2025. That was a cap that was brought in when Boris was Prime Minister. They've now removed it. Labour say that they want to reform the sector and change the NPPF, the National Planning Policy Framework, to introduce a presumption of development in lots of areas. And they say that they're going to encourage more permitted development rights to encourage housing delivery. So obviously what they say and what they do are definitely two different things. They talked a lot about growth. They were wooing business and saying that they weren't going to put taxes up on working people and making businesses all sorts of promises. I'm going to do a separate video on this and go through all the things they said versus what they did. Obviously what they've done looks to be just the opposite. Is anything going to happen next year? Well, they say it is. They say the NPPF is going to have its amendments next year. So I think there will be more development into conversion next year in 2025. And I suspect that housing starts will increase slightly, but clearly there is a planning pipeline and probably takes you 2 years to get planning consent. So any changes that Labour make now, probably 2 or 3 years away before there's any demonstrable change in completion, or even housing starts and definitely housing completions. But I think there will be an uptick in 2025. So those are my 6 predictions for 2025, but what do you think? Go down into the comments, put your comments there, like, subscribe, and I'll try and answer as many of your questions as possible.